My niece Abby is 20, and we were having a family lunch one time, and her boyfriend, who's studying economics at the University of Western Australia, he asked me for how I could help him with AI to answer this question that his lecturer gave him. So the question that they had to write an essay for was this one here. If the Australian government puts all their forces and support behind EVs, will that help or harm the environment? Really good, right? Provocative, challenging question. And his lecturer had told them, you're absolutely allowed to use AI as much as you like in answering the question, and just make sure at the end you tell me how you used it. Okay, which is really exactly what we should be educating students to be doing, to use AI to help them formulate the answer. Okay, so let me switch to this. So first of all, the most obvious thing to do, and Noah said that most of the students in his class, basically what they did was they just did a copy and paste of the question and they put it into ChatGPT and saw what answer they got. And by the way, I did this a couple of days ago, and ChatGPT has actually got a lot more sophisticated in the last year, which is when we had this conversation. And it's actually quite good now. Just giving it a broad question like this is pretty good. Okay, it's not a silver bullet, and even without asking, it's given us pros and cons. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, if you were using AI to answer that question, so will Australian government support for EVs help or harm the environment? Just broadly, I'm not going to expecting you to write full AI prompts, but just in the chat, what would you do? What sort of prompts might you ask? What sort of track would you take when you're looking at answering the question? So I'll go back here and ask you to type in the chat. So what sort of things would you do apart from just copy and paste? Okay, while you're thinking, I'll give you a suggestion that I gave to Noah at the time. So at the time I said, okay, Noah, let's do these two prompts. One is, give me 20 reasons why supporting EVs will harm the environment, and then give me 20 reasons why it will help. And then he could go through those, and he could find out, then research. So using it for idea generation. Okay. Data comparison, yeah. Questions around dependencies, risks, and scenarios. Yep, break-even points. Yeah, the processes. Rebecca says, what are the references? So make sure you get references. Absolutely, you should always do that. And life cycle, yeah. Kate says, yeah, so not just give us a list, but also do some importance rating. Explore the broader definition of environment. Suggest EV components. Yes, okay, good. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, and really good suggestions here. Good, right? So we can use AI at different levels to address this question. And I can see some people in the room here have actually gone quite deep with that, which is exactly right. Like if you're doing this in a real situation, as opposed to being a university student doing this for an assignment, then you would go quite deep in some of these things here. And we actually did another thing as well. Let me just do this shortcut ready for you. Here's another one that I suggested to know how to do. Imagine that you're a time traveler from 2050 and you're coming to talk to the UN about the effects of government support for EVs around the world. And we said, look, especially negative effects, right? And we said, let's try that. Let's ask AI to be speculative. And it did that. So this way you're looking at, like people say, you don't want AI to make up stuff. In this case, we do. And then, okay, so it's actually written out a speech for us here. And said, yeah, well, this is what we overlooked. And there's a, yeah, okay, so here we go. So ChatGPT said the big thing that we missed is not about cars, it's about mobility. Okay, and that's a pretty good big picture way of thinking about whether you support EVs or not. It's like saying you're thinking too small. And then it went into more details. Okay, so my point is this: when you're doing your research using AI for this, you can, like, it's very easy now to do this kind of speculative research and speculative ideas generation rather than just get facts. So one of the things I would say is that most of the responses that I got from the room here were about facts, find out information about break-even points and costs and what's happening in the world and resource acquisition and so on. That's good, and AI is really good for that. But it's also, when you're doing things like scenario planning, AI is really powerful for being speculative. Okay, let me see if I did this other one. I can't remember whether I did. Hey, okay, so we then said to ChatGPT, in that time leading up to 2050, who were the people who warned us about this and we just didn't listen? Okay, and again, it's making up stuff, but we're asking it to talk about real people. Okay, and again, this is really valuable so you can obviously translate this to the way that you would do it. Here are real people that if this was an important issue for you in your sector, AI has now given us a list of people and organizations to follow. Okay? And these are the sort of people you should be thinking about following for the future. Okay. Okay, so I hope that's useful for you. So if you found that useful, can I invite you to do this kind of research is really worth doing beyond just fact gathering. Okay, so if you're doing scenario planning, remember part of it is being speculative about the future, and AI is really good for that. Okay, it's really good for that. If you haven't used that in that way already, then can I please invite you to do that.